What lies behind the premature teachers' exodus? And does this affect more black than white children? How much would be an acceptable salary for teachers in South Africa? And what can be done to make teaching a more desirable career path? What time is it? It's question time. Welcome to Question Time. My name is SADTU. Teachers have been resigning in mass numbers lately. The South African Democratic Teachers Union, SADTU, has put the blame squarely on government, claiming exploitative salaries is the reason behind this. But is it true that teachers are paid slavery wages? Is there anything that government can do to avoid this? A reminder that you can call us and air your views on the following numbers: 089-110-4210. If you're outside the borders, 002789-110-4210. Our Twitter handle is @QuestionTime24. My guest today, Nkosana Tolopi, is the Deputy Secretary General or General Secretary of SADTU. Welcome to the show.
Evening. Thanks for having us.
Is it true that teachers are getting slavery wages?
Indeed, it's true that teachers can't afford life. I mean, when you work usually, there are basic things that you are working to at least possess as a person. Like, for instance, when you work to be able to own a house. You work to be able to afford health care. You work to be able to educate yourself, perhaps further your studies, and also educate your children. You work to be able to afford feeding your family. You also work to be able to transport yourself from home to school. In the current situation that we are facing is that teachers can't afford those basic commodities, those basic variables for them to be able to live at least from the first day of the month up to the last day of the month.
Yes.
They are heavily indebted. They can't afford life.
Yes, actually, teachers are targets for Bomashonisa.
Yeah, it's not because of they want to go there, but it's because of the salaries that they are getting, very, very little salaries that they are getting. I mean, having studied for almost 14 years, 10 years at school, you proceed 4 years. Some of them have master's degrees, but the kind of salaries that they are getting are just that you can't keep them happy.
Okay, how much does an average teacher get?
Look, currently, at the RQV 14, which means standard 10 plus 4 years, the starting was 180 per annum, before the current increase of 6.4% now. So I won't know the exact one now, but it was 180 per annum, which was very, very little. When you compare that with any other person entering elsewhere in any other sector, they are getting far, far more than they are getting.
And why are they quitting? Is it because of money?
Money could be one of the reasons, but there could be other reasons as well. Look, firstly, there's nothing attractive about being a teacher currently. The job satisfaction is a serious issue that we are facing as a country. The conditions of work, the environment where they are finding themselves in is very, very difficult. They are not appreciated by our communities. We have children who are ill-disciplined, parents not supporting them, not appreciating them, but also the employer not appreciating them. Look at the kind of salaries that they are getting. So overall, there are many, many other factors, but you can then end up with a question of saying that there's no job satisfaction, there's no appreciation by both the employer, but even by the parents in our communities, not supporting and appreciating teachers as key.
Do we have enough teachers in South Africa?
We don't have enough of them. That's why you have cases of shortages of teachers at our schools, overcrowding, for instance, where teachers will be teaching up to 60, 80 learners in some instances in our deep rural areas. So we have a serious shortage of teachers. Now, over and above that challenge, we are losing them now because the conditions are just not keeping them in the system.
And who's suffering most here? Is it the black child or the white child?
The black child, of course. Because you remember in our ex-Model C schools, the school governing bodies, because they are charging high fees, there are instances where they give teachers more incentives, more over and above what they are getting from the state as the employer. Yes. But there are other incentives, stipends that they are getting for doing some work, and that's what we can't afford at our township schools because parents can't afford to pay those high school fees.
But is it not, is it not also that you're not paying, and by you I mean a parent, you're not paying for resources or rather for your schools to be resourced in your rural areas or in your townships?
The responsibility of educating children, of educating a nation, remains with the state. Parents should not be really paying. It's not their responsibility to make sure that you educate children. If they do pay, it must be maybe to pay some small amount of money just for them to be able to pay the basic resources at schools. But the question of paying salaries of teachers can't be the responsibility of parents. What will make it even worse is that our parents in the township schools, most of them are unemployed. Some of them were working, earning slave wages as well. I mean, they would not be able to pay those school fees. If you would punish them, if you would say to them that they should be paying those schools, in fact, you'll be punishing them to keep their children away from school because they won't be able to afford to pay those. Whereas in the white schools, those parents, because they're earning a lot of money, they can afford those high fees.
The white schools where you take your kids.
The white schools can afford to charge high fees, and whoever send their children there, of course, will afford to pay them. That's why
the comrades
will be able to do that. The schools in the Egg school where parents are sending their children to are affording to pay those schools. That's why they are able to pay extra incentive to their teachers and keep the best there. Even attract the best teachers from our township schools.
I wanted to say that because I do not think that those schools are losing teachers, actually.
No, they are not losing them because, look, they can afford to pay them extra incentives. That's what we can't get in the township schools. And that's where predominantly we get our poor working class black communities there. I mean, it then becomes a question of affordability. It's a question of education become a privilege to those who can afford, and those who can't afford will get the worst out of that whole situation. We need to correct that. It can't be that we will lose the best teachers to the white schools and leave our township schools without the best of skills that we should be having as a country.
In the mining sector, we know that 12,500 is what they are demanding as the minimum. What is the rate in the teacher's profession?
Like I told you when I started, you should be able to look at the 5 variables.
Let's talk figures.
I told you that you should be able to look at the 5 variables. You should be able to afford to buy a house.
Yeah, but
if you look in terms of the market now of housing, you will not be able to afford or get any house less than 500,000. So as you are giving me a salary, first you must consider that I want my employee to be able to provide shelter to their families. Secondly, you look at the cost of health care in our country now. It's the second variable that you should be looking at. And then thirdly, you look at the price of education. There was a time where the CPI was at 5%, but the CPI for education in our country, higher education, was at 8%, which means whatever you would have given to your public servants, to your employees, would have been less what you would have spent for education at some stage. So I'm saying you should be able to give teachers, public servants a salary that will be able to make them afford educating their children. The question of feeding, I mean,
educating their children where they are teaching.
Of course, but I'm talking about higher education now in particular. I'm talking about higher education now. I'm saying parents should be able to get a salary to feed their children. They should be able to afford transport. I mean, the increase of petrol price is what they should afford. So I'm saying look at these 5 basic variables, and that you will be able to determine the kind of salary that they deserve. And,
I mean, don't you have a figure?
No, I'm saying it's going to be very difficult because, like I'm saying, these are different kind of variables that I'm talking about. I'm talking about housing that always change. You don't have a static kind of figure around it. That's why it's going to be very, very difficult for me to just give you a figure now.
Would that be the only reason, really, why teachers are quitting? Because they're saying you're quitting because you want to get the pension money and,
but the reason why they take the pension money is because they want to buy houses. You'll be surprised that you'll have a teacher working for almost 20 years, but does not even have a house. I mean, that's an embarrassment. I mean, for somebody, a professional, would be a noble profession like ours, somebody working for 20 years, but can't afford one important variable, providing shelter to your family. So the reason why they are taking their pension funds is because they can't afford. So they think of taking the bulk of their money, they will then be able to buy houses for themselves. Some of them are taking the pension funds because they want to educate their children. They can't send them to universities, hence they want to take the money and pay for the school fees of their children.
And I have a question for you. Given all these challenges, do you think you are still the best representative of the aspirations of teachers in South Africa? You'll answer that question when we come back from the break. This question time, a reminder that you can call us and air your views. If you are a teacher or a parent, the number to dial 089-110-4210 or 002-789-110-4210. This question time.
SABC News seeks to be the biggest, the most extensive and diverse news organisation on the continent. Our mission is to provide accurate and credible news and current affairs programming throughout the day. We are committed to covering every part of the continent. We reflect the world to Africa and Africa to the world. SABC News, Africa's news leader. Now available throughout the continent.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest today is Nkosana Toropi, who is the Deputy General Secretary of SADTU. We welcome your feedback or your calls, and we'll be taking them on the numbers that will be on your screen right now, 089-110-4210. If you are a teacher or an educator or a learner, a teacher who has just resigned or who is retiring, or you want to come back into the profession, is SADTU still the vanguard of the teachers in South Africa?
Proud history of representing teachers. It is us, in fact, who improved the salaries of teachers from what you would have had before 1994. It's us who equalized the salaries along racial lines. You remember, before 1994, in fact, before we were established as a union, teachers were paid based on your race. We stopped that. Sure. We changed that. Now in South Africa, all of us, irrespective of your race, at least you are getting the same kind of salary as a new entrant into the system. Secondly, it is us who fought for the recognition that women have a natural right to give birth. Before we established the union, when you got pregnant as a woman, that was termination of service. It is us who fought against that and changed that. Now our women are enjoying giving birth and can stay at home for a period of 4 months with full pay. It is us who changed even in terms of the pay structure in education. You would remember before we were born, the structure was such that the female teachers were getting far less than their male colleagues. We changed that. Now you have a situation, irrespective of your gender, you are getting the same salary. I mean, I can count many of these things that we as a history are proud of as a union that would have changed and improved the lives of the teachers for the better since we were born up to now. Lives of teachers now are far better than they were before SADTU was born.
Mm-hmm. And would you therefore say that you are not able, would you concede that you are not able to curb this exodus that we are seeing?
Look, the question of salaries is not us who are paying the salaries. We must remember it's the employer, and in this case, it's the state.
Yes.
We continue making the call that teachers deserve to be appreciated. They deserve better salaries. We are saying that for us to have the development of the country, development of our economy, cohesion in terms of our country, you need to prioritize education. And teachers are central in all that, in developing the country, in developing our economy. Education is central, and in that center, you will then get teachers. So we say, let's appreciate them, let's pay them well, let's create a conducive environment for them to be able to do their work. Let's provide them with more resources, in fact, employ more teachers such that they should be able to enjoy their work and do what they love the most, and that is to teach our children.
Why are people not going into this profession anymore?
It's not attractive. I mean, look at the salaries that they are getting. Look at the levels of discipline that they have to be exposed to on a daily basis. Remember this situation of a teacher being beaten by a learner at some stage? That's the dangers that they're exposed to on a daily basis. What kind of support and appreciation are they getting? Nil from their employer, no support from the school governing bodies and the parents. In fact, they are lamented, they are lambasted on a daily basis. Those are the kind of things that discourage youth from joining the profession.
All right. Vani, you are calling us from the Eastern Cape. Welcome to Question Time.
Hello?
Yes, Vani.
Yes, you're speaking to Mrs. Vani from the Eastern Cape.
Okay.
Yes, I'm concerned about the teachers that are resigning in large numbers. It's a very bad thing because we are losing teachers, qualified teachers, because of the pressure from the Department of Education. But it is so bad. They are not even paid. The salary, they can't afford little things like buying their own houses. They can't afford to buy houses because they are in so much debt. So it's very bad. It's affecting the children, and the children are at risk here because they have resigned even now. Now that we are writing, the learners are supposed to write exams now.
Yes.
But many teachers have already resigned. You will find out that there is this teacher-people ratio thing, this Peter Mokel model, that is not working for us as teachers in the Eastern Cape, more especially in the rural areas. The teachers there, you will find that you will have to teach 12 learning areas. How possible is that if you have to produce quality education? The Department of Education is expecting us to produce quality, and we want to produce quality education, but we can't if you have to teach 12 learning areas. It's so disgusting. Even in the rural areas, we were promised that we will get the rural incentives.
Yes.
In the Eastern Cape, there are still schools who didn't get the rural incentives because there is some ruler that has been used to measure how far are you from the road and all those things. Meanwhile, you are working in the rural area.
Okay, Mrs. Vani, thank you very much. Are you familiar with this problem?
We are familiar with that. I mean, you still have situations like you go to Limpopo, where teachers are teaching these learners under trees. It's whereas people expect of you to be a professional. I mean, which kind of professional could be subjected to that kind of treatment? You have situations whereby some schools, for instance, don't even have electricity. And then you expect of them to be able to do these miracles. I mean, I'm saying the conditions under which they're working are very, very difficult. Like the issue that she's raising of the post-provisioning model, the provision of teachers by the department to schools, it's not assisting at all because you still have a situation in the deep rural areas where teachers are teaching overcrowded classes. We were crying about the question of maths teachers, for instance. You can't, mathematics is a subject that needs individual attention. You can't then subject a mathematics teacher to 60 learners and still expect of him to do miracles. It's practically impossible.
Okay, I want us to just look at some of the tweets here. This is Sibulele Makini, who says it's not just salaries, it's also, whoa, we seem to have lost that tweet. Yeah, there's some technical problems. There we go. Unfortunately, capitalism reigns supreme. Salary is the biggest draw card. Increase the salary. That's Nicole. Whereas Sibulele was saying it's not just salaries, mismanagement, uninvolved parents, crowded classes, rude children, no resources, and so on. Let's talk about this, Mr. Dolok. Let's talk about the uninvolved parents and the rude children.
Look, you must remember, education, it's not something that should be like residing with teachers, or you can't just assign teachers with that responsibility of education, of educating a nation. To a large extent, when parents are involved, where parents are involved in the education of their children, children are performing well, they're progressing well.
Yes.
But in situations where parents are not involved, you then have learners being slow in terms of progressing, in terms of their performance. I mean, you can look at that. If you look at our ex-Model C schools in town, whatever, in the suburbs there, those learners are performing, and to a large extent, the reason why they are performing is because their parents are really involved in their education. They are supporting their teachers, they are attending school governing body meetings, and so on and so forth. Even questions of discipline, you will be able to arrest questions of discipline if parents are involved in the education of their children. When a child misbehaves, at least you're able to call the parent in, and then the parent come, and then you address the question of discipline. So teachers in the township schools are left to themselves. They must do whatever. They face these difficulties all by themselves. Like I said earlier, no support from the department, no support from the parents, and it's a really difficult situation that they're facing on a daily basis.
Matlomula, you are calling us from the Eastern Cape as well. Hello?
Oh, it's Mlamuli. Hello. Hello. Yeah, it's Mlamuli, not Matlomula.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes. Thank you for welcoming into your program. Now, one thing that I wanted to raise here, when you asked Mr. Dolopi that is SADTU still relevant or representing, its numbers, I don't think SADTU is still relevant today. For instance, I want to make an example here in the Eastern Cape. Today we are facing a crisis which in their leadership that they have not addressed, as SADTU members, we are disgruntled. We have a situation there where they disbanded, the PEC in the Eastern Cape. We have not been disbanded as branches and regions, but we are representing our members who want to communicate with the crisis that we have in the Department of Education. What they have done, they have, through Maluleke, stopped us from communicating with the SG and the MEC. So that does not make SADTU popular to its very own members in the Eastern Cape. They are unable to address and engage leadership in the Eastern Cape and also their own members, asking why they are chased away in the Eastern Cape when they go to the meetings.
Are they chased away?
That is not true. That SADTU is still relevant. And also in KZN members, they are disbanding people and so on. They are chasing people away in SADTU. SADTU is no longer the SADTU that used to be, especially in their leadership. They have destroyed, dividing people inside SADTU is very closer to the state, Tell me, why have you, how did you get mandate to expel NUMSA? Where did you get that mandate? Because in the Congress, which was in Joburg, there was never such a mandate that you must expel NUMSA. There are so many other things that are unpopular.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the call. It would appear he's got quite a lot of issues. This sounds like an internal matter.
It is. It's an internal matter. You would remember we have these COSATU issues of the expulsion of NUMSA, the expulsion of the former General Secretary of COSATU. So it's something to do with that. It's our internal SADTU challenges. Remember, we even expelled our president at some stage for abusing his position as president. I think he has something to do with that. But in the Eastern Cape, we have structures that are representing members on a daily basis. Members are being represented in hearings on a daily basis. We are taking up issues on their behalf on a daily basis. There is a serious issue of post-provisioning that they are referring to in the Eastern Cape of overcrowding. That is being attended to. I mean, I've been there on a few occasions. I've addressed many branch meetings. This year alone, I've crisscrossed that province. I've never been chased away, not by even one branch of SADTU in there. We have internal challenges there, but we're addressing them, of course.
Let me wish you all the best and hope that indeed the glorious days of the teaching profession shall be returned to.
We should return them. We should appreciate teachers. We should pay them well. We should make sure that we create a conducive environment for them to be able to do their work.
All right, that was question time for today. A big thank you to my guests and to you for watching the show. Our email address questiontime@sabc.co.za. Our Twitter handle @questiontime24. From me and the crew, have yourself a wonderful time. Bye.